Okay, so I did a video a couple days ago about the Myles Garrett Mason Rudolph fight, um, and my final opinions about in that video were I believe that Myles Garrett should be punished a lot more than what he was. He should be fined significantly for what he did. The players involved in that altercation that had any wrongdoing whatsoever should have been punished, and also Mason Rudolph should have been fined. But no, Mason Rudolph should have been fined and suspended for his part in it, because instigating, like I said before, instigating in hockey, you do get punished for that. So I think instigating in any sport, if you provoke, oh shit, sorry, if you provoke somebody, I think that you should take accountability for the part that you played in it. And I think Mason Rudolph's actions, although it wasn't enough to cause a significant amount of damage to Myles Garrett, I think that I think his actions were enough to send Myles Garrett over the edge, which he should take accountability for that. But the punishments were doled out the way they were doled out. People were left alone the way they were left alone, and it's pretty much nothing you could do about it now. And the NFL has had a sordid history with unfair rulings, unfair decisions, and at this point, it's never going to change. So, let's move on.
So the Browns are attempting to move forward after the Myles Garrett brawl last Thursday night. Head coach Freddie Kitchens said the organization is supporting Garrett despite what Kitchens called a...
And this is one of the very few smart things the Browns have done since this year has started, since this season has started. You have to defend Myles Garrett. Even if he is 100% wrong, you have to defend him. All right? He's a young guy. He is... He is an extremely talented player with a pretty high ceiling. And you have a lot invested in this kid. And you're going to have to defend him. You don't want to risk alienating him. You don't want to, risk him wanting out. Because, I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not easy to find pass rushers. I'm going to say is when you have great pass rushers and great defensive ends, you want to try to hold on as much as you can to them. Especially when they're at his age. So they got to defend him. It's the only smart play that you can. It's the only play that you can make, and it's the smart play. So I'm not surprised by it at all.
Bad laughs in judgment. Others defending Garrett have said that video of the fight shows Mason Rudolph kicking Garrett in the groin, and fellow Browns defensive lineman Sheldon Richardson didn't shy away from putting some blame on the Steelers quarterback. Take a look.
All right, now I said, if what they said was true, all the things that people were saying that this guy, Mason Rudolph, was doing, if it was true, he should have been suspended as well. And apparently it is true. Okay? Provoking somebody to the point where they literally want to cause bodily harm to you, you should be held accountable for that. But apparently we live in a society where the people we pity, the people we see as victims, get exonerated for their actions leading up to what caused them to be physically harmed. You see it all the time in the domestic disputes that people have, where sometimes the victim are the provokers, but because they're viewed as less than as far as physicality goes, they're exonerated for any wrongdoing they may have done to lead up to the altercation or, physical altercation. So, I don't know, man. I do not think that Myles Garrett should be let off the hook for what he did. And I don't think Mason Rudolph should. I don't think Mason Rudolph should have been left alone the way he was, as far as what the punishments go. But I don't know, man. And some might say that Myles Garrett provoked it. Myles Garrett provoked Mason Rudolph's actions, which provoked Myles Garrett to have to, I guess, respond in an appropriate manner. So, I don't know, man. It's kind of, if I'm ruling it, because it's hard to know who started it, we would have to dole out punishments to everybody. I mean, everybody would have to get it. It's like if you have a few kids that live in your house and somebody did something wrong and you're trying to get the truth out of them. Nobody wants to tell the truth. So you know what? Everybody gets punished. I mean, that's how you got to kind of treat this situation.
Protecting himself, though. I don't blame him. The guy keep rushing me even with the helmet off. He's asking for it, so just leave it at that. If a guy scratching at your face, what you gonna do? If that's your child, what would you do? The helmet was overboard. Let's get that clear. It's overboard. It was. But defending yourself, I'm not. I don't blame him for defending himself at all.
So you feel like Rudolph escalated it?
Of course he did.
Some might say Mason Rudolph was defending himself, because if you look at the play, when Myles Garrett was taking him to the ground, you can see almost like Myles Garrett was pushing him and forcing him to the ground and like holding him there. And a lot of times defenders are very physical when it comes to putting people on the ground, especially quarterbacks. They're a little bit too enthusiastic with their strength, and sometimes they can go overboard. One might say Myles Garrett went overboard, and Mason Rudolph felt some way about it. They also lost, so, I mean, he also could have been upset about the loss as well. That could have contributed to the anger. But if I'm a grown man and another grown man that's bigger and stronger than I am force me to the ground and pushing my head into the dirt, I'm going to be extremely angry. I mean, it's only natural. So, I don't know.
And antagonize a fight and then claim bully after you get what's coming to you.
Super Bowl champ and Fox Sports college football analyst Reggie Bush with us this morning for this discussion. So what do you think about this one, Reggie? Is Mason Rudolph getting a free pass for his role in the fight?
Yes. He should have been punished as well.
Yeah, I do think he's getting a pass in this role because he was just as much a part of instigating that fight as Myles Garrett was. Now, clearly Myles Garrett took it above and beyond, too far. That was probably one of the worst things I've ever seen in all my years of watching football. But, you know, to say that Mason Rudolph didn't take a small part in that fight, I think would be wrong, because I don't know if he was trying to kick him in the groin, but his foot was definitely placed in his groin and maybe even extended. And then also we saw him trying to pull his helmet off in the beginning. And so I understand why and how the fight started. But I also think the other player in this fight is the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Why are you trying to throw a screen with 10 seconds left on the clock? Because it's your job and duty to also protect the players as well, right? Mason Rudolph.
But you act like this is the first time in NFL history where a team is down and the score is obviously not in their favor and they have no time on the clock and they're continuing to try to score. You act like this is the first time that's happened. Like, it's common sense to know when you're down by too much, it's best to just give the fuck up. How many times do you see that? How many times do you see that? And like he said, it's a screenplay. So sure, the rushers that are not being blocked, they're going to have a free shot at the quarterback. But some might say Myles Garrett should have just pulled back a little bit. You know, if he got the ball out of his hands in time, just put him to just push him. Or, you know, just like something, just put him on the ground and that's it. Leave it alone. But to exert your physicality on somebody, especially a grown man, you're forcing your will on him. How do you expect Mason Rudolph to respond, man? How do you expect him to respond? You expect him to be okay with it? Or is this some race thing where this is a black man, so we obviously have to defend him in this altercation because the NFL has taken other black men and completely railroaded them. So we should just defend Myles Garrett because of that. I don't know what this is, man. Like, they're both wrong. But to fight over who started it, there is never going to be anybody that's going to say, you know what? Who cares who started it? They're both wrong. Punish them both. I mean, two things are doled out unfairly or unevenly. Two things people dole out unevenly. Unevenly. Sorry, I'm having a hard time speaking right now. Credit and blame. Credit and blame are two of the things that people either want too much of or they want to pass off all of it. Sometimes you just either got to share the credit or share the blame. And in this situation, you have to share the blame. And they both needed to be punished. And the NFL going after Myles Garrett, that's what I have a problem with. Because you have to take down Mason Rudolph as well. I don't know. I don't understand the NFL now, man. And it's not about the defense. It's not about all the nitpicky rules and shit like that. My biggest issue with the NFL is a corporation that does not even police their own well. They make so many mistakes and nobody makes them answer for it. But they make everybody answer for the mistakes they make. And if the NFL want players to strive to be perfect, want to be perfect, they have to do their best to be perfect. They have to do their best to do their job right. And nobody's making them do it. And that's the problem with these businesses, man, that have too much power. It's like they're in a position where they can do whatever they want and can't nobody say anything about it. But let somebody else that works under them or works under their umbrella of whatever, and they're ready to completely throw them to the fucking wolves, man. It's just a problem. And the NFL all year long have made mistakes. Like the referees. The referees since the strike a few years ago, the referees have not been very good at their job. They've made a lot of mistakes. And a lot of times people pass it off as human error. I mean, that can only fly for so long. I mean, at some point you have to be called out for what it is. There's only two reasons why these referees are performing the way they are. Is either, I guess, ineptitude or they just don't care. I mean, obviously, it's one of those two things, man. Their inability to do it or their carelessness with it. It's one or the other, man. The NFL has real issues right now. And this eventually is going to come back. It's going to become a bigger issue than it is right now.
Has just gotten sacked twice leading up to this last play. 2 times in a row. One was 65, I can't pronounce his last name. And then another one was on a blitz.
Owen Gobi.
Yeah, Owen Gobi.
Yeah.
And so he got sacked 2 times in a row.
Not quite, but it's okay.
Good.
And then he had 4 interceptions.
Ogun Jobi.
There it is. And then he had 4 interceptions. And so he's been having a rough day. And so at that point, I'm just trying to put myself in that position. If I'm the offensive coordinator, I'm going to protect my player. He's already getting beat up all game. They haven't been able to protect him. And then he got sacked 2 times leading up to basically what was going to be the last play. And then that happens. And so I think the Pittsburgh Steelers also have to take as much credibility in this fight even starting by continuing to call pass plays when the game is completely out of reach.
I don't have a problem with Freddie Kitchens, Sheldon Richardson supporting their guy. They should. You should say, look, he made a terrible decision. He made a mistake. He had a lapse in judgment, but he's our guy. We're going to put our arms around him. We're going to support him, whatever the NFL, the punishment they deem necessary. We're going to welcome him back with open arms because that's not the guy that we know that's been in our locker room. But this notion...
No, that's not bullshit. It has nothing to do with Myles Garrett's character. What it has to do with is this kid is extremely valuable. He's extremely young. He still has a ridiculous amount of potential. So we need to defend him. Let's not get it fucked up. It's not about his character. It's about his potential.
It's like anything. If someone is pulling at your head, let's just say I have a head full of hair. I got an afro. I got dreads. If someone's pulling at me, I'm going to kick to try to get them up off me. He's grabbing him by his helmet, pulling him. So what am I trying to do? A prime example, if you go back and look at the tape in 1993, we were playing, it was the 94 season. We were playing the Raiders in a playoff game, Skip, and I was cooking them. Winston Moss, the very Winston Moss that came and sat in that chair. I caught a pass, I think it was my 10th or 11th pass in the first half.
You know exactly what
I did everything. I think 10 or 11. I won't really know. Skip, 10 or 11, I was cooking them. Skip, he tackles me. Instead of just getting up, guess how he tried to get up? He put his hands on my head and pushed himself up.
I hate that. Oh my
God. What I tried to punt him. I tried to punt him in the next week.
I hate
Skip.
that.
When it comes to force, you must use reasonable force to diffuse the force that was used against you. Yeah. Someone reaching at your helmet. Okay, if you shove him to the ground, no problem. That's the force to keep you up off me. But once you hit him in his head, now we see all these videos are talking about, and I don't need to explain it, about excessive force. Somebody shoves someone, let's just say it's an officer, and the force is excessive. Well, he didn't have to do that.
Right.
You need to meet the amount of force that was used against you. That's how it works. Skip, I can't step on someone's shoe. They knock me unconscious and say, well, he stepped on my... Wait, you can't do that. Right. He used excessive force. Yeah. The amount of force that he used, instigation or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know how this works? And people are like, well, he's...
And again, Mason Rudolph is not as big, as strong, as physically intimidating, or no, the better word is physically imposing as Myles Garrett. If we're talking about might for might, man, Mason Rudolph will lose 10 out of 10 times. And when you... It's like when you see two kids fight. One is bigger, one smaller. And the bigger kid throws the kid around. And the smaller kid has to resort to other tactics to try to meet like he said, meet the force that the bigger kid is using. I mean, this is what Mason Rudolph is doing. He's trying everything in his power to pretty much match what it is that Myles Garrett is doing to him. Because he's not as big. He's not as strong. He's not as, again, physically imposing as Myles Garrett. So he has to do, I don't know, in my opinion, the best he can, man, to kind of keep this dude back. Or at least send a message. Like, come on, bro. Like I can see this being Mason Rudolph's message to Myles Garrett. But some people don't see it that way. Some people don't look at that. Some people look at the tackle that Myles Garrett made on Mason Rudolph and they say, well, I mean, it was a clean tackle. I mean, sure, it was more physical than it needed to be, but hey, it's football. But when you're playing and you're the one that's getting hit like that, it's different. It's different when you're in the seat versus somebody else being in the seat. There are plenty of times, I'm pretty sure, in everyday life for anybody where they felt like somebody was trying to physically intimidate them, and they had to do whatever they could to prevent that. And Mason Rudolph did the best he could, I guess. I mean, it is what it is, man.
Not what he did. And I get it, Reginald, you calling the plays. But for some reason, Myles Garrett was hell-bent on taking the man to the ground.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Because if they're going to try to run that play,
right,
don't you think that he has every opportunity to get that sack?
You subject yourself to a hit on the quarter.
Nobody's arguing that Myles Garrett didn't have the right to sack him. But the fact that he felt he had to physically do more than what he needed to make the sack instigated the entire, you can say it instigated the entire thing. Myles Garrett's decision to put more on his sack than he needed to, caused Mason Rudolph to act as so, which then forced Myles Garrett to respond in the way that he responded. And again, when we get into this situation, it's best to just punish both people and move the fuck on.
Back. Yeah. When you still throw it in that situation, because normally, Skip, in that situation, you put the backup in, you let him hand the ball off, you run out of time, and you get on out the field. Mm-hmm. So when you put yourself in that situation, but the amount of force that Myles Garrett used to try to defuse this situation was excessive. Oh, yeah. There's force and there's excessive. He used excessive force. Mm-hmm. And I don't condone that, but if you want to support the guy, Skip, he made a terrible decision. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give him that. But when he comes back, that's our guy. Because that's not the Myles Garrett that we know. That's not the Myles Garrett that I've been around for the last 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. But to try to he got what he deserved. Really? Yeah, no. Because we lose our stuff. When we hear other people say he got what he deserved, he shouldn't have been resisting. Yep. So just remember when you say what Myles Garrett did was okay when he used excessive force. Just remember.
Only idiots use that argument to justify how they feel about something. If somebody does something wrong and the punishment was whatever the reaction was to whatever the person did, I mean, look, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm just going to say Myles Garrett should have been punished even more severely than what he was. I'm talking a suspension that leads even into the next season, maybe 3-4 weeks into the season. And a significant fine, possibly getting fined. No, it's possibly no pay while he's missing these games. Like a serious penalty, because you have to prevent behaviors like this. Because if we allow players to think that, I could do whatever the fuck I want on the field, all they're going to do is probably suspend me for a season and fine me, and that's it. But, any opportunity that I can take to release some frustration over whatever the fuck is going on, I can do that. I mean, and you have some players who already don't play that much. So missing a year isn't really a fucking issue. And most likely Myles Garrett is still going to be getting paid after while he's serving his suspension. I mean, I don't know, man. I think you gotta go 100% with it to discourage this behavior in the future. I still feel like the NFL is somewhat condoning it, but without knowing that they're condoning it, making it okay for players to believe this. Because this is ridiculous. If this was the streets, that is a criminal offense.
Got it. So, everybody agrees the helmet was completely over the head.
Yes.
We all agree with that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Reggie Bush makes a good point I have not heard made. I hadn't put it in the context of, wait a second, they call it a screen pass?
Yeah,
with 14 seconds left?
10 seconds.
21 to second. Well, the play started at
14, right.
Again, this is not the first time in NFL history where teams are down by a lot and still continue to try to play the game. It's not the first time. This is what I remember. I heard a story about why they started doing the QB nil at the end of games, like when you have the lead, because I can't remember exactly when it happened, but there was a coach who decided that even though his team had the lead with a little bit of time left, that they were going to still try to go for it, or still try to move the ball. And he, the quarterback, I believe, turned the ball over. And that team that was down late in the game with less than, 30 seconds left? The team that was down got the turnover, returned it to the end zone for a touchdown, and the team that was going to win wound up losing because they didn't take care of the ball. This is not the first time we've seen shit like this. We got to stop being surprised by it.
And it's 21-7, so the game is over.
Yeah.
Like there's no hope.
Ain't no
here.
14.
And a great example of that is the Atlanta Falcons against the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. You're up 25 and you're still throwing the ball.
And they backed up too.
Okay. They're backed up. So, given that, they snapped the football and nobody blocked Myles Garrett.
Right.
I don't know why it's a screen pass. So he's unblocked. He is unabated.
By the way, that's 3 plays in a row. He can hit.
Okay. So the ball is gone quickly from Mason Rudolph's hand. And I don't know what possessed Myles Garrett, but he takes him down with a vengeance.
Yeah.
It's rub it in vengeance.
Yeah.
And Mason Rudolph clearly immediately does not love it. He's already kind of fighting back when he takes him down and then rolls over the top of him. I was trying to see if there was a groin kick there, like underneath, like a little rabbit punch sort of a groin kick, and I can't see one there. But then Mason does a weird thing. He grabs both hands, the helmet. He's just kind of shaking his helmet. I don't think he's trying to rip it off because I don't know how you could rip it off at that point. But it was weird. And so now Myles doesn't love that. So now it escalates, and once he stands up, then the kick is a cleat in the thigh, just trying to push him off. But he reaches down and...
That's what it looked like. It looked like Mason Rudolph's body language was saying resisting. That's it. It didn't look like he was trying to physically hurt the guy. It looked like he was agitated, but it looked like he was trying to get dude off of him at first.
Snatches the face mask. And with that chin strap buckle, he rips the man's helmet off. That's pretty dangerous act right there. Boy, you know, he's one of the strongest guys in the league.
Because, Skip, here's the thing. You control the head, you control the body. Because that was the...
Look, it wasn't enough for Cleveland to win the game. Cleveland has been shit all season. With the expectations that that team had going into the season where people believed that this team was a Super Bowl contender, everything was right on paper. All they had to do was go out there and execute and win. And they haven't. They haven't played well at all. And you know who else haven't played well at all this season versus the expectations going into the season? The Pittsburgh Steelers. I would think both teams would try to handle themselves in this game with a little bit more maturity and a little bit more professionalism. Because, it was just lacking. The childish nature of these two franchises was on display in this situation. And I made plenty of videos talking unbelievable amounts of shit about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what I think about their organization and the way they run their team. And the only team that I can think that's even on par with what I believe about Pittsburgh is the Cleveland Browns. And I don't know, man. I just think this was a bad look for both franchises. But I'm done for now, man. Hopefully Mason Rudolph does not have any long-term effects from this hit on the top of the head with the helmet. And hopefully Myles Garrett learns his lesson. And maybe he'll take the gas off, especially at the end of a game. And that's a better question. Instead of asking why did the Pittsburgh Steelers run a screenplay, ask why was Myles Garrett so intent on taking down Mason Rudolph as much as he was as much as his intentions were to take the dude down, man. Like, he was hell bent on doing it. Why is that? That's a better question than why did they run a screenplay? Why was Myles Garrett going 100 miles an hour instead of just doing the best he could with containing the play just so they could win the fucking game? It's a better question. But I'm done.